Okay, ladies and gents, so today you're going to do a spinach chromatography lab. So you should have this worksheet in front of you. Remember yesterday we talked about that a green leaf has a bunch of other pigments other than green. So today you're going to figure out what other pigments, what other colors, what are their names, so on and so forth. So the technique that we're doing is paper chromatography, and it's useful for separating those pigments. So we have the most common pigment, which is chlorophyll, which makes the leaf green, but then we have things called accessory pigments, things like carotenoid, and they are hidden until like fall, and then you can see the color. So anyway, this is what you're going to do. First of all, there should be a few strips of paper. If you need to cut your own strip, fine, there's extra up there. You are going to take this strip, you're going to take your scissors, and you're going to just make a point on one side of the paper. It doesn't have to be equal, it doesn't have to be even. You can see mine is crooked, that's fine. You're then going to take a pencil and you're going to draw a nice straight line at the bottom portion of the paper before it starts to make the tip. So can you see that? That's where my line is. Okay, now I have a tube. It's a glass tube, please be careful. Glass tube with, I gotta go this way. Okay. Glass tube with a cap. The paper might be too long. In this case, you can see that it is too long. So if you hold it up next to it, you might need to cut your paper off a little bit. That's fine. Okay, now you're going to take any sort of coin, quarters or anything. Quarters or dimes work best because they're ridged, but whatever. And you're going to take your spinach leaf. It's important that you lay not the vein side down, but the pigment side down. And you're going to take whatever coin you have, and you're going to try to transfer this pigment onto this line that you drew. And you're going to want to get as thin a line as possible. You don't want a super thick pigment line like this thick. You want really, really, really thin pigment line. So I'm just going to lay this down on my table, and I'm going to trace over part of the pigment on the line. And I'm just going to keep moving parts of the spinach leaf because as I roll, I'm going to cut into the spinach leaf. And so there's only a certain amount of pigment there. I want to probably do this 10-ish times until you get a really nice dark pigment line. So here, this is what my spinach leaf now looks like. It has a whole bunch of slits in it. From where I rolled over it, you can see that I kept moving it so that different pigment was. And then you can see how thin this line is. If it's not thin, just go get another sheet of paper and try it again. It's fine. But you don't want a super thick pigment line. Now next, you're going to be working with acetone. Acetone is rubbing alcohol fingernail polish remover. It stinks. It also evaporates very, very quickly. So it's really important that you keep the cap on this at all times and the cap on this at all times. Not just set on, screwed on. So you're going to unscrew it, unscrew this cap, and you're going to pour just a very, very little amount. There's some funnels in your bins. Once you're done, please put the cap immediately back on because you'll already notice it starts to smell. And then go ahead and put the cap back on this even without the paper inside. So you'll notice I just put a little itty bitty bit down in the bottom. I don't need to fill it any more than that. Okay, once you're ready and you've made sure that this will fit inside, you've also made your pigment line. You're going to insert this paper into the solution. You'll have to gently crease it or curve it to be able to get it in there. But when you're inserting this paper, you want to make sure that just the point or just barely touches the bottom of the water or the solution. Please do not shove that pigment into the solution. If you do that, you're going to ruin your whole lab. Also, once it's touching that solution, that acetone, one, make sure to put the tap back on. But two, what's going to happen is it's instantly going to start wicking up the acetone solution onto the paper. So it's really important that this stays still because as you move this solution, the pigment lines will start to separate goofy. So as you can even see, do you see that the pigment line is moving? I can see it. It was really one nice line and now all of a sudden we have two kind of separate lines. So the pigment is moving. it's going to take about 15 minutes for the pigment to move all the way up the paper. But the really important part about this, guys, you can actually physically see, you probably can't see on this recording, but the paper actually appears wet, clearly, because it's soaking up a solution, right? But the thing about that is you don't want the wet part, you don't want the solvent to actually run over the top of your paper. If it does, it will take all of the pigment with it and it'll run it off the page, and then you won't have anything to measure. So that's not good. You want your pigments to be more separated throughout the bottom of your paper. So once you see it is up to like here-ish on the paper, unscrew your tap, pull out your paper. There are some forceps or tweezers inside. Put the cap back on this. Please don't make stinky messes all over. And then what you need to do is you need to, sorry, there's a crack. You need to instantaneously have a pencil ready and mark how high up that solvent line went. So now you can see on my paper that I have a mark where we started and I have a mark where we ended. You then are going to start to see different pigment lines throughout. And those are the pigment lines that you're going to measure. So, really very simple. Lab, not very intensive. Please read the directions like you can see on the screen. And then calculate the RF values. So that's what you'll be doing. How to calculate an RF value isn't terribly difficult. I'm trying to figure out how I can show you this on here. You will have your little sheet of paper, and let's say you have a pigment line here and a pigment line here. Oh, I know. Hold on. Here we go. So hold on one sec. Maybe where'd it go? So here's the top line that I marked here. Here's the bottom line that I marked here, right? So top line, solvent front, baseline. And then you have a bunch of pigments separated throughout. So what you're always going to do is you're going to measure from the baseline to the first pigment line and write down that number. And then from the baseline to the next pigment line and write down that number. And then the baseline to the next pigment line, so on and so forth, and write down that number. And then you're going to measure from the baseline to the solvent front, so this big chunk right here. And you're going to take each of these smaller numbers, so this number, or this number, or this number, and divide by this bigger number. So you'll get a decimal, right? So that's pretty much what you have to do, and then there's a few more questions. If you read the background information, this will be pretty easy. So good luck, have fun, enjoy, don't break anything.